Have you ever felt like the woods were waiting for you to remember something? Stay till the end. Because what found me in that forest wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to wake me up. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 27 years old, and this happened on a ridge above Hollow Pine Creek, deep in the Oregon Cascades, a place the locals don't say the name of out loud. A year earlier, I lost my best friend, Danny. On that same ridge, we've been climbing partners since college. The kind of friendship where you don't have to explain yourself. You just have to show up. We'd summit half the peaks in the Cascades together. He was the one who talked me into that campsite in the first place. Back when we were both broke, stupid, and certain we were invincible. I still remembered the first night we ever camped at Hollow Pine. 22 years old, a six-pack of warm beer. Danny standing on a boulder at 2 a.m. insisting he could see the Milky Way better than anyone else on the mountain. We laughed until the fire burned down to embers. That memory used to make me smile. Now it just made my chest ache. Then a storm hit us out of nowhere that August. Danny lost his footing on the wet rock. I reached for him. For 1 second, our fingers touched. Then he was gone. Search and rescue looked for 11 days. They never found a body. Just a pack, half buried in the creek bed, 3 miles downstream. For a year, I told myself I'd go back when I was ready. My therapist said closure isn't a place you drive to. I didn't listen. On the 1-year anniversary of the accident, I packed my truck, told no one where I was going, and drove 4 hours into the backcountry, alone. I should have listened to her. 40 minutes from the trailhead, the classic rock station I'd had on since Portland dissolved into static. Right as it played the opening notes of a song Danny used to blast every time we drove up to go climbing. It cut out on the very first line. I told myself it was bad reception. I turned the radio off and drove the rest of the way, gripping the wheel a little tighter than I needed to. The gas station clerk near the trailhead gave me a strange look when I said where I was headed. Hollow Pine? Tonight. He glanced at the calendar behind the register. Folks don't usually camp up there this time of year. I asked him why. He just slid my change across the counter. Asked the ones who came back. I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. By the time I reached the trailhead, my phone had dropped to 1 bar. There was a corkboard nearby, the kind covered in faded flyers for lost dogs and hiking permits. One flyer stopped me cold, a missing persons poster, edges curling from the weather. I recognized the smiling face immediately. My chest tightened. I told myself it was just someone who looked like him. I didn't read the name. I should have read the name. The trail wound through old-growth pine so thick. The afternoon light barely reached the ground. 2 hours in, I noticed something wrong, though it took me a while to name it. There were no birds, no insects, not even wind moving through the branches. Just my own boots on packed dirt. And underneath that, a silence so complete it felt like the forest was holding its breath. I reached the campsite by 5. Same spot Danny and I always used. A flat clearing above the creek, with a fire ring built from stacked river stone. I hadn't touched this place in a year, but the fire ring looked freshly used. Ash, still faintly warm, sat inside it. I told myself a ranger must have camped here recently. I didn't check the date on the ash. I didn't want to know. The creek below the ridge should have been loud this time of year, swollen with snowmelt. Instead it sounded distant, muffled, like I was hearing it through a wall. I pitched my tent as the light started dying. And that's when the temperature dropped. Not gradually, all at once, like someone had opened a door to somewhere colder. This wasn't August at altitude cool. This was a cold that got inside my jacket and sat against my spine. I built a fire to fight it off. The wood wouldn't catch, not for 20 straight minutes, no matter what I tried. Then, all at once, it roared to life on its own, 3 feet high, like it had been waiting for permission. I sat by that fire and felt nothing. No warmth on my hands. No heat on my face. Just orange light flickering against a wall of trees that seemed to lean in slightly closer than they should. Around 9, 2 points of light caught my flashlight beam deep in the trees. Low to the ground, too far apart to be a raccoon. Too still to be anything I wanted to identify. I blinked. They were gone. Not moved. Gone. Like the dark had simply closed back over them. That's when I heard it the first time. My name, whispered, from somewhere past the tree-line, low enough that I convinced myself it was the wind. There was no wind that night. Not one leaf moved. With my hands shaking, I pulled up my photo app. Some instinct telling me I needed proof of something, anything, even if I couldn't have said what. I scrolled past a year of ordinary life. Coffee cups, a coworker's birthday cake, a blurry sunset out my apartment window. Then I hit a folder I hadn't opened in 12 months. Danny and me on a dozen different summits, grinning, sunburned, alive. The last photo in that folder stopped my scrolling thumb cold. A selfie, me alone at the overlook, taken at night. I had no memory of ever standing there in the dark, let alone taking a picture. But there I was. Same jacket I was wearing right now. The campsite fire glowing faintly behind me in the frame. The timestamp read 11:46 p.m. 1 year ago, almost to the minute. I told myself I must have forgotten. People forget things all the time. I didn't believe that either. I told myself it was an animal, a trick of the dark. But when I swept my flashlight across the tree line, the beam caught something that made my stomach drop. Boot prints. Fresh ones, circling my entire campsite in a perfect ring. Close enough to touch the guy lines. And I never heard a single footstep. I crouched to look closer, and the cold in my chest turned to ice. The tread pattern matched my own boots exactly. Same brand. Same worn patch on the left heel where I'd caught a rock climbing that spring. I checked my boots. Dry. The prints in the mud were fresh. Sharp-edged. Still filling with groundwater. I pulled out my phone to ground myself in something normal. The screen lit up, and for half a second, before the display refreshed, I saw a text thread open. A conversation with Danny. Messages I never sent, never remembered receiving. The last one, timestamped that exact night 1 year ago, read, "I'm almost there. Hold on." Then the screen went black. Dead battery. I'd charged it to full that morning. That's when a voice spoke from just behind my shoulder, close enough that I felt breath on my neck. "You shouldn't be up here tonight." I spun around so fast I nearly fell into the fire pit. An old man stood there. "Are you with the Forest Service?" I asked. He didn't answer that. He looked past me, toward the ridge, like he was watching something I couldn't see. "Not many people camp up here anymore," he said. "Not since the boy went missing last year. Fell off the overlook in a storm. They searched 11 days. Never found him." "I know," I said, my throat tight. He was my best friend. The old man finally looked at me. Really looked. The way you'd study a photograph, not a person. "Is that what you think happened?" he asked. "What else would have happened?" I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. He tilted his head, considering me with an expression I couldn't place. Not quite pity, not quite warning. "The mountain doesn't take what you think it takes," he said. "It just takes what's owed. Every year on this night. It collects." I didn't understand any of it. I still didn't understand it minutes later, when I turned to ask him what he meant, and found the space beside the fire completely empty. No lantern light retreating into the trees. No footprints in the dirt where he'd stood. Just undisturbed pine needles, like no one had been there at all. I decided I'd had enough. Ghost stories or not, I wasn't staying. I kicked dirt over the fire, grabbed my pack, and half ran the mile back to my truck. Doors locked, exactly how I'd left them. in and turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. The dashboard didn't light up. The interior light hadn't come on when I'd opened the door. Like the battery had been dead for months, not hours. I tried my phone again anyway. Out of habit more than hope. It flickered on just long enough for me to see 1% battery before going black again. This time for good, in the silence that followed. The truck radio crackled on by itself, dial glowing faint orange in the dark cab. Static, then a voice, warped like an old recording. Danny's voice. Not screaming, just talking like no time had passed at all. "Come on, man. Storm's getting bad. We should head back down." Word for word. The last thing Danny said to me before we started up toward the overlook that night. I slammed the door and ran back up the trail. Because whatever this was, running from it clearly wasn't an option. And somewhere above me, through the trees, I heard it. A scream. I didn't think. I ran toward the sound. Branches tearing at my arms. Roots catching my boots. The scream came again. Danny's voice, exactly like I remembered it. Exactly like it sounded the moment before he fell. "Ethan, Ethan, help me." I ran faster. Twice I lost the trail completely, stumbling through underbrush that seemed to close in tighter the harder I pushed. Branches raking my face. My flashlight beams swinging wildly across black trunks that all looked the same. For one heart-stopping second, I caught a pale shape standing motionless between two pines and nearly screamed, until my light steadied on it and I realized it was only a dead birch, bone white and leaning. Nothing more. I kept running anyway. The scream was pulling me somewhere I didn't need a trail to find. The trees thinned out ahead, and moonlight spilled across a familiar shape. The overlook, the same ledge, the same 300-foot drop into Hollow Pine Creek, where they'd found that pack and nothing else. I skidded to the edge, chest heaving. "Danny, where are you?" Nothing answered. Just wind, finally, moving through the trees for the first time all night. Cold enough to burn. I swept my flashlight across the ground and found footprints. My own, same worn heel, leading in a straight line to the exact spot where I stood. They only went one direction. There were no prints leading back. I stared at that impossible line in the mud, my mind refusing to finish the thought it was trying to form. Behind me, in the trees, I heard the old man's voice one more time. Quiet now, almost gentle. "Is that what you think happened?" And then, like a dam breaking, I remembered. Not Danny reaching for the wrong handhold. Not Danny falling. Me. The storm hitting us on this exact ledge. Danny losing his footing on the wet rock. Me lunging for him, grabbing his wrist just as my own boots slid out from under me on the loose shale. Danny's fingers locking around mine. Both of us screaming, both of us fighting gravity for one impossible second. I remembered letting go of the rock instead of letting go of him. I remembered falling. I remembered the roar of the water rising to meet me. Impossibly loud. And then the cold. A cold that swallowed every other sensation whole, pulling me under before I even had time to be afraid. I remembered waking up beside a fire that never warmed my hands, in a body that cast no shadow, walking a loop through the last night of my life like a record stuck on its final groove. I looked down at my own hands in the moonlight. I could see straight through them to the rock below. Far off, dawn started to gray the sky, and with it came a new sound. Footsteps that actually disturbed the leaves. Breathing that actually fogged in the cold air. Real. Alive. Danny. He came out of the tree lean the way I remembered him. Headlamp on. A wooden cross under one arm. His face carved with a grief I recognized because I'd worn the same look at every funeral I'd ever been to. He walked straight past me, through the space where I stood, and knelt at the edge of the overlook. One year, he sat quietly, driving the cross into the soft earth beside a small brass plaque already staked into the ground. A plaque with my name on it. My birth date. Last August date beside it. I'm sorry, man. I should have held on tighter. I understood everything then. The flyer at the trailhead. My face, not his. The old man, who'd never once said my name back to me. Because you don't need to say a name to someone who already knows it better than anyone. The boot prints with no return trail. The fire that never warmed me. The phone, showing a conversation that ended the night I died. Because for me, it never continued past that point. Danny wasn't the one who went missing. I was. And Danny had spent an entire year coming back to this ridge every August, on the anniversary. Not because he thought he'd find me, but because some part of him needed the forest to know he never stopped looking. I thought about all the ordinary things I'd never get to do with him again. The climbs we'd never finish. The terrible diner coffee we'd never complain about on some drive home. Grief, it turns out, doesn't end when you die. It just changes whose job it is to carry it. I reached out to touch his shoulder. My hand passed through him like fog. He shivered anyway, glanced over his shoulder at the empty air where I stood. I miss you, he whispered, to no one he could see. Then he stood, wiped his eyes, and started the long walk back down the mountain. Alive, and finally, maybe, able to leave this place behind. For the first time since I'd arrived, I noticed the birds. Somewhere in the brightening trees, one of them started to sing. Hesitant at first, then joined by another and another. The whole forest exhaling all at once, like it had been holding its breath for exactly as long as I had. The silence I'd walked into the night before was gone. I understood, somehow, that it had never really been the forest's silence at all. It had been mine. I don't know how long I stood on that ridge after he left. Time doesn't move the same way once you're not part of it anymore. But I know this. The forest didn't let me go that morning. I'm still there, most nights, standing at the edge of Hollow Pine Creek, waiting. If you ever find yourself camping alone in a forest that's gone too quiet, no birds, no wind, just the sound of your own boots on packed dirt. Check your hands in the firelight. Make sure you cast a shadow, because some of us don't find out we're the ghost story until it's already too late to leave. If this story kept you up tonight, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Just maybe leave a light on.